Where do we go from ground zero?
Welcome to the Therapy Brothers podcast.
I'm Brannon.
I'm Tyler.
We're brothers,
We're therapists.
and we know recovery.
Bring your stories, your questions, your successes with real recovery.
Hey, Tyler, you ready to have some hard conversations?
Let's do it.
Let the Therapy Brothers podcast begin.
Brannon, it's good to see you, man.
Hey, it's good to see you, brother.
I know. I'm glad we're both in the same place today.
Yeah, it's good to see you over the weekend too.
Yeah, it was really nice.
You ate the biggest salad I've ever seen.
Dude, like I fell victim to the trap. If anybody goes to like a grocery store that's got like a really nice salad bar and it's like by the pound, they give you like the bowl that's not like a normal serving size. It's like enough to feed like a whole family. And then you just like add a little bit here and you add a little bit there. And pretty soon you got a whole bowl that should feed a whole family. But now, like, how much was that salad, Brannon?
You think you're being healthy, and you just ate a $35 salad with like 17,000 calories.
Exactly. I just fell victim to that totally. And then I washed it down with a bowl of like homemade soup from there too.
The funny part about it was like 10 a.m.
we just gotten together for like a meeting together, so like at 8 a.m. and by 10:15 you and I are eating like salad bar from Harmon's.
Massive salad. But it was good, you know?
It was really good. It was delicious.
Yeah.
It was delicious.
Yeah. Congratulations on that.
I'll learn from my mistakes.
I was eating sushi at 10 a.m. So who am I to talk? Yeah. Well, we have a very special person on as a guest today, and I'm really excited to have her here. So, Lisa, I won't get too much out of the bag here because I want her to talk about her experience, but she's an amazing therapist and a podcast host and has her own personal story of growth and recovery, and it's just awesome to have her. So Lisa, welcome to the show.
Thank you, guys. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah. If you could just give maybe a little bit of background and tell us some of your story, and we'll go from there.
Okay. So I'm a licensed professional counselor. I've been practicing since 2007, and I have dabbled with like PHPs, IOPs, and now I've had my own private practice for several years. And for most of my career, I was specializing in eating disorders. But as I'm going to share today, I'm a therapist, but I'm also Lisa the human. And that's how I show up with my clients, and that's how I show up on my podcast. And just like everybody else in the world, like I've been humaning through, as Glennon Doyle calls it, like a brutal life, where it's brutal, it's awful, it's beautiful, it's amazing. And I've had some ground zeros, and that's even changed my line of work. I love being a counselor. I love working with people, but over time, I just wasn't passionate about the topic anymore. My life experiences and just my interests started to shift. So I used, again, one of my ground zeros to be intentional with my life and my job. And a few years ago, I shifted into getting more trainings and things that I love, like EMDR, helping to heal trauma. I sometimes work with betrayal trauma. It kind of fell on my lap, but I actually work with a lot of therapists who, just come to me to talk about how to balance caring for others and being there and showing up in such a crazy world right now, while also taking care of themselves. And I've kind of used, again, my ground zeros to wake me up and live my best and truest life. And now I get to share it with them and help kind of motivate them to do the same. So
I love that word, brutal.
Yeah.
And I am living a brutal life right now too. I think we all are.
Mm-hmm.
So take us back just a little bit, Lisa. Some of these ground zeros you talk about that have shifted your focus, shifted your life. You don't have to get into the details of it, but I'm just wondering, how did they create such a shift? What was it like in those moments for you? If you could just kind of go back and think about those times, they obviously had a pretty intense influence on your life and the direction that your life took. If you could talk about that a little bit.
Brannon, and while you do that, Lisa, just I'm sure most people listening will understand what you mean by ground zero moments, but maybe describe what you mean by a ground zero moment, and then kind of share what Brannon's talking about.
Sure. Tyler, I'm sort of like you. I know Brannon teases you for reading things, but I'm a reader too. So ground zero is kind of like a moment where you're just going about life and tragedy strikes and out of nowhere sometimes. And at the time, it feels like everything you knew, everything you loved, your life that you had, it feels like your house has burnt down and you're starting brand new from scratch. And I happened to come across this word called a life quake that I wish I had found when I started my podcast, but it talks about a significant and unexpected shift in the trajectory of your life that initially feels devastating, but has had the beneficial outcome of catalyzing personal growth, transformation, and rebirth.
Awesome.
Yeah. So just to start, when I was a teenager, I had a lot of complicated losses. I had a family member die in a fire unexpectedly. A friend my age die in a car accident. Another one was like this 15-year-old boy who had this rare heart condition and died on the basketball court. Both my grandmothers passed away. The boy that I thought I loved at the time was graduating and going off to college. My best friend moved, like all in a year. And it was one of the worst years of my life. And at the time, I was really, understandably, really depressed, struggling so hard. And thankfully, that misery kind of motivated me to get into therapy myself. And start working to healing myself, because at the time I was so afraid of loss that I was like going out into the world protected and afraid. I was even afraid to tell my mother that I loved her out loud, because I felt like if God heard that, he would take her away too. And I know it's irrational, but that's where I was. And I didn't want to live life like that. So I went to therapy, and throughout my life, I've had more ground zeros, more unexpected things, earth-shattering events, and I used them to keep learning and growing. And some of my biggest ones have shifted into like being very intentional of like, I need to wake up and come alive. You know, I was, can I read one more Glennon Doyle thing? I told you I'm a reader. I had, at one point, I had kind of like bought into this time where, you know, moms especially, but dads too, I think, you know, we're kind of taught to like, to be selfless and self-sacrificing, like you're honored and revered as a mom for doing that. And I was doing that. I was like sacrificing all of my passions and dreams for everyone, my kids, my family, friends, and giving out, but not getting a lot in. And my biggest ground zero was like the moment where I said, like, I need to come alive, you know, for not just myself, but for my children. And Glennon Doyle had said, you know, we live in a life as if she who disappears the most loves the most. We have been conditioned to prove our love by slowly ceasing to exist. What a terrible burden for our children to bear, to know that they are the reason that their mother stopped living. What if a responsible mother is not one who shows up for her children, or shows her children how to slowly die, but how to stay wildly and fully alive until the day she dies? what if the call of motherhood is not to be a martyr, but a model? And that's kind of what I've been using my ground zeros to do for my children and then publicly. So.
It's interesting you're identifying this as a ground zero, because I think it's one that I think when people think ground zero or these life quakes, it's like the moment I find out about betrayal, or like you talk about all of these deaths that you had to go through, and those are life quakes. But you're talking about this one of like when you have kids, and as a woman, like all of a sudden you're thrust into this like system of motherhood and the way we define it. I think there's a lot of like shame and should around it, of like, you should be loving this and you should be sacrificing. And the life quake is like, wait, like this is my life and I'm not loving this. And so how do I actually navigate this where I feel alive and I feel healthy and I feel good? And so it's interesting that you're identifying this as one, because I think it's one that most women, and I can't speak for women, but from my experience, most women go through when they have children and their life completely changes of like, what does this mean about me and who I am and how I live my life? And so I'm really glad you're bringing this up as one of your ground zeros or life quakes.
Yeah. And, betrayal absolutely is a ground zero moment. It's like, you look back at pictures and your life before, and now you've got this new story that just doesn't make sense. And it's like one of those moments that my house is burned down. But I always tell people the good and the bad about that burning down is that you have to rebuild, and that's where I think intention is really important, because you either can choose to rebuild on your own, which some people do, or if you choose to work things out with your partner, you get to like rebuild, hopefully better and stronger by doing the work.
I'm going to back up just a second, just because I love what you said, the very last part of the quote you shared, becoming a model instead of a martyr. That could be in the context of what you were sharing in motherhood, but it could also be just in the context of, really in the context of dealing with ground zeros in general. And I love that there's room in being a model to still be of service, but to be of service in a wholehearted way where there's something in the tank to be giving, rather than the martyr just being empty and just still feeling compelled or compulsion to keep giving until there's nothing left. There's such a difference in just the approach to that. Moving into what you were just saying, we're talking about ground zeros here, and I'm thinking about this, my own ground zeros, the people that we see in our clinics, maybe your own. There seems to be a tendency inside of those ground zeros for us to almost have the natural response and reaction to close, to harden, to go inwards, to shrink our world in an effort to protect ourselves. And I guess I'm just wondering, like, from your experience, whether it's personal or other ideas, how do you help navigate that process of being at the crossroads? Something is now happening. Life is falling apart. Everything in me wants to close, wants to protect. And yet the pathway forward is kind of something other than that. How do you deal with that? Like, how do you navigate that crossroads?
Well, I was there when I was young. Like I said, I did close myself. I protected. I was afraid. I was a therapist long before I became a paid one. And I'd be there and I'd listen and I'd support people. But then I didn't open up. Like, people would be like, "How you doing?" I'm like, I'm fine. And I learned quickly, thankfully, that you don't get a medal at the end of your life for being the strong one or the one that has it all together. And B, it doesn't save you from pain. It actually doubles it, because as you're like trying to guard and protect your heart, you're missing out on beautiful relationships and connection and all the things that I need in my life. And so, especially like with a betrayal trauma, it is so hard, to trust yourself. It's so hard to trust anybody. You know, your person, the one that you love the very most in this world and trust, they shock the crap out of you, and it rattles your trust with him. It rattles or her. It rattles your trust with women or men, depending on who's been betrayed, because it's like everyone can feel like a threat. But for me, I think because I had that early on experience of closing up, through the years, I've like made it my mission to do the opposite. I've used my hurts and my pains to become more open, more vulnerable, more transparent, but with the right people. Like I'm very intentional. You know, I started off protected, and I kind of drew in people who were protected and guarded and not open. But as I've gone through it, I've been very intentional with like who I spend time with, who I open up to. But I have beautiful people who have shown up for me, and I do them. And so I've used it to be open, but protected by making wiser choices.
I think people listening right now are probably asking two questions that are at least going through my mind with what you're saying. One is like, okay, so you through your own experience learned to commit to this openness because you could realize that the pain was doubling. The first question is, how do you actually practice or exercise the muscle of that openness in a safe way? And the second question is like your team, you said you started building a team around you. I know there's a bunch of people listening to this right now going, the last thing I want is a team to know X, Y, or Z of what my ground zero is, because ground zero is so vulnerable. How do you select who's going to be the right team member?
Well, I aside from you guys, my favorite inspirations are like Brene Brown, Glennon Doyle, and you know, my first step was like really, like I read all their books, I really listened to them, and the thing I loved about them was how they were just brave enough to be open and vulnerable about everything in their life. And there's some things I choose to share with my closest people, more so just because some of my stories involve other people that may not be ready for me to share openly with the whole world. But, you know, what I would do is kind of like, if you look at it like an onion layer, you know, Glennon Doyle just dumps it out with people, and she's just like, hey, this is my messy world and this is who I am. And people just chose to gravitate toward her. You could do that. Or if you don't feel that safe or comfortable, if you find someone that, you know, I teach people about safe versus unsafe people and the qualities to look for. And if I see someone who looks like they have that, then maybe I'll start with like a little nugget of something personal in my life. And I'll just kind of pay attention to like, how do they show up? Like, are they judgmental? I pay attention to see like, if they're going to gossip about other people, they're going to gossip about me. That doesn't align with my values. So like, I kind of avoid people who are gossipy, and I just look for like early things to show that maybe they're worth sharing with. And then I share little and little. And then I've noticed the more I do that, they're more likely to share and be vulnerable with me.
I'm having like a lot of deep thoughts. I feel like I'm going to railroad us here a little bit, but
That's all right.
I'm going to do it anyway. So yesterday I watched a documentary called "And So It Goes," and it's the Billy Joel documentary. So when you think of Billy Joel, what do you guys think of?
Piano Man.
Dude, that guy is a musician. Like, holy cow. But you watch his documentary, and it's this I had a really interesting experience watching it because he had a suicide attempt when he was younger. I won't get into all of it, but he went to the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. And just when you thought like, wow, like he'd learned his lesson, and then he'd do it again. It's like, then his manager would steal all his money, and he'd go through another divorce, and his alcoholism would get worse. And then he'd like be on top of the world playing with Elton John and like #1 hits, and then like another divorce, and again and again and again. And he was talking, and he's like such a normal dude. And he's like, yeah, I know I've been the laughing stock of a lot of jokes. But I've been through a lot, but I still don't have it all figured out. And so I'm listening to him, and then and I'm watching this, and I'm thinking about my own life and just the cycles of things are going really good, things are really hard, things are good, things are hard. And like knowing you guys personally the way that I do, and watching your lives, and knowing the ups and the downs and the really hard times that you've hit, and yet the resilience and the battling through and coming back. And the truth is we have hard times ahead.
Yeah.
And so here's my philosophy to it all. If I zoom out, you look at it, you're like, what's the point? Like, what are we doing? If a guy like Billy Joel, you think like Billy Joel figures it out. He gets like famous, big hits, money. He's good, right? No, that dude's like, whoa, right?
Yeah.
Look at your lives. Look at my life. We're all going through it. So what are we doing? Like, what is the point? Because it seems like as you're talking, Lisa, about like getting a support system and, getting close enough, but being careful, in a way that is very smart, but in another way, we can't avoid the pain and the cycles of distress and stress in our lives. Right. So what do you guys think the point is? Like, what are we doing? I
have my answer, but do you want to think, Tyler?
Give us your theory, Lisa.
Well, for me, there's the different stages of grief, and when you've had these ground zeros, you go through all of them: the denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. But there's another stage that isn't always mentioned, but it's about finding meaning and purpose for your pain. And that's what I feel like I've been trying to do. Like, I've had a lot of ground zeros.
Yeah, you have, Lisa.
I have. And, I've stayed focused on my why. Like, I always talk about Rocky and how he's beaten down on the mat, but he gets back up every time. And if we have our whys, we do that. And one of my whys is like, I want to take the ugliest, yuckiest, most painful parts of my life and use it for something beautiful. And that's what my podcast and my work has become. Like, it's not that I would want to go through it all again, but it's made it have meaning and purpose. And I love to share that.
Yeah, I'd add to that, Brannon, that in the words of Billy Joel, we didn't start the fire. It's always burning. The world keeps turning, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's something, like, your question goes to a little bit deeper place, as I start thinking about your question, Brannon, for me, and I think about my own life, and I also think about the clients that I have that kind of like grow into this, like what you might call a wholehearted way of living. There's the ground zeros don't stop coming. They're the ground zeros, the clients that do the best, or like the places where I've done the best in my own life, have been when there is not only an acceptance, but an embrace of the fact that ground zeros are just a part of life, along with all the other parts of life that are joyous and beautiful and wonderful. And when the perspective shifts to the ground zeros being an opportunity for growth, for transformation, for perspective, for development, life becomes, the whole view of life starts to shift where, I look at recovery, for instance. You tell a brand new person who's trying to jump into recovery from addiction, and they say, how long is this going to take? And you're like, the rest of your life. They're like, what? Like, no, like, this is miserable. Like, no, I can't take the rest of my life. It needs to be like 3 months and then I'll be better and then it'll be all better. It's like, you don't understand what I'm saying. Like, you're going to adopt a new way of navigating this world, a new way of seeing yourself. You're going to start recognizing different parts of your identity. You're going to use this that you're going through for fuel to benefit the lives of yourself and other people. And you're going to want to grow until you die. Mm-hmm. And when you do that, your life will become full, rich, vibrant, colorful, exciting, even though you're still going to have some of the painful stuff. Mm-hmm. But the perspective shifts everything, and all of a sudden life becomes worth living even with the ground zero moments.
Yeah. I always say, like, I could have 50 reasons and they're all legit for why I could hate my life. And there was a time where when I first met Brannon, I wasn't hating life, but I was definitely in like that fixed mindset of like, why did this happen? But if I wanted to, I can also find much more than 50 reasons why I love my life every day. I've kind of trained my brain to whatever you seek out, you will find. You look for the bad, you're going to find it. You look for the good or the beauty, you're going to find it. Mm-hmm. Which wolf do I want to feed?
Yep. Yep. I think there's a distinction between, and really we're talking about fixed mindset and growth mindset. But even beyond growth mindset, there's a belief, I think, where it's like, there's a reason and we don't know what it is totally. Mm-hmm. Like, we're growing here. Mm-hmm. We're like being taught. And when we die, I believe that there's a reason why we went through all the hell that we went through. Mm-hmm. Like, and if you know there's a reason, then you can take what comes to you, whether it's betrayal or even like things that in our eyes are like, that's ridiculous, God. Like, come on. But you can take that and you can say, there's a reason. Mm-hmm. Like there's a point to this. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know if I'd be sitting here with Tyler today if he didn't go through some things in high school similar to what you went through, Lisa. Yeah. Like, there's a point. But in that moment, I remember the night that one of the most horrific things happened. I was laying in bed just confused and I was just in shock. And as a 16-year-old, I'm laying there. I have no clue that would lead to me sitting here on our 500th and third episode with Tyler. Yeah. Right. And yet it played a part and it was important. And we would never want something like that to ever happen again. But there's a point. And I think maybe I'm going a little too far with my theology and philosophies here, but
let's stick with it a little longer, Brannon. Like, this kind of merges into a question that I was posed yesterday, and I'll challenge you and our listeners to think about. I don't know if I'm fully settled on the answer yet, but it goes along with this. I think, if you could live a life where you are only in pursuit of knowledge or only in pursuit of faith, which one would you choose?
Faith.
Yeah, faith. I mean, for me, faith. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. Why?
I'll let Brannon answer.
Well, if I practice faith, I'm going to gain wisdom. Like, I'm going to gain an understanding. And so it's more sitting in that vulnerability and that unknown than trying to get to a place of knowing everything and being in control. Yeah. The growth happens in that faith place.
Yeah, yeah.
For me, it's what like Brannon just said. Yeah, the growth and the wisdom, I think, just naturally happen. But for me, my faith, my foundation in God, like, I don't know how I would have gotten through my ground zeros if I didn't have that.
Yeah, beautiful. You guys are in the same realm as where I am. I was sitting as I'm pondering on this, is that if I pursue a life of cultivating faith, I actually get both.
Mm-hmm.
If I only pursue a life of knowledge, I'm searching for continued certainty, but I never actually get to lean into like what life is, which is true uncertainty. And so with faith, now all of a sudden, if I'm cultivating faith and I believe that there is something working for my benefit, something bigger than myself, God, Christ, the universe, whatever, naturally I'm leaning myself into navigating my life and my world in a way where that experience becomes valuable because I have faith that there's some meaning or purpose to it. And then I gain the knowledge as a result of living a life of faith. And in a lot of ways, that's kind of what I think the same thing that we're talking about here is how do we start to learn to embrace life on its terms? And believe that there is some bigger purpose for whatever this all brings.
I was talking to a guy struggling with a drug addiction, and it's hard when you're in that place to say there's a purpose to this drug addiction. Talk to a person who's it's D-Day and they just recently
barely found
their
out.
world just got shattered, and all's this faith and knowledge and all this stuff, all they see is pain. And I like what you said, Lisa. It's the process of grief that really brings us back to that place of growth and learning through. So we have those crisis moments that rock our world, but then if we sit in that grief and we process through that pain and we face it, we get the payout of it all.
And I've been listening to you guys since you were the Therapy Brothers the first time around, and I know, Brannon, at one time you had said, there is a time before you start the whole growth process, like you have to be in that pain, and it's okay to like when you feel like the rug has been pulled out from under you, it's okay to lay there for a little bit.
Yes.
And it's human. Like here I am talking about, I really do live and practice and preach that growth mindset now, but I'm still human. I still have moments where I might visit. I don't live there anymore, but I might visit that moment, and
we all do.
Yeah. But it's okay to, like, I want your listeners to know, like, when you're down, stay down for a little bit. Let yourself cry and feel all those things, but then figure out, like, what is my why? Like, it is now my choice to, like you've said, Brannon, like, things happen to us and that pain is not our fault, but the healing is our responsibility. Get up. Why am I getting up? Yeah,
love it. I've had this song, like I always have songs stuck in my head, but one of the songs I've had is the song, if you're going through hell, keep on moving, don't slow down. If you're scared, just push through it, right? And I think there's just something to that. It's just like in those really dark, hard moments, and I like what you said, Lisa, about stopping, because I actually think that's moving through it some. So it's a paradox, because I need to stop and feel and acknowledge how painful that is so I can move on. But if I stop and feel and acknowledge, and then I just want to wallow there and feed a victim and stay stuck there and try to get significance in my life because I have so much pain, then I don't move through it. And so it's paradoxical of like, I need to stop, I need to acknowledge, I need to feel the pain, and then I got to keep on moving.
Yeah.
Right.
I think there's an energy in that, Brannon, that's different when what you're talking about, like it's almost like a really big act of self-compassion when you're in the middle of like the crisis, to actually pause and acknowledge the devastation, the guttedness, the wind knocked out of you emotionally, and actually be a witness of that. But that's a slightly different process than just being wrapped up in being continually the victim to life. It's like a gift to offer yourself, to be like, oh, that hurts so bad. Like, where does it hurt? What is that process? Like, what is this like horrible, bitter medicine? It's like, like, what is this? And can I acknowledge it? But can I do it with curiosity and compassion instead of just being stuck in it myself and then cycling through it over and over and over again?
Yep.
I over on my podcast, I made a couple episodes on the angels who have blessed my life, but then I also talk about the teachers that I've had. And what I said were the teachers were the ones who have hurt me or disappointed me, or just, or even like I've had, I have loved ones who have struggled with addiction, one being my dad. And he's one of my greatest teachers.
Yeah.
He was a very good, loving man, but he had addiction and mental health stuff that he never addressed, and caused a lot of pain and joy and love, both. But sadly, I watched his life get smaller and smaller, and he lost beautiful things that he loved and beautiful relationships. And he is now like a motivator to me, where it's like, I don't want that for my life.
Yeah.
I'm not going to let my life shrink from pain. I'm going to be that buffalo and face things head on and do my own work, and, be intentional with it. And
and you do that, Lisa. You live that way. And there's things that are coming along trying to take you out and trying to get you knocked down so far that it's like, fine, I'll give up. But you don't.
Nope.
Yeah. So I want you to, this is, while we're nerding out with philosophy and all kinds of things, I never knew we'd get into this stuff today, but I'm trying to figure out the AI thing. So I think I've kind of figured it out. So I hope everybody's listening, because I think we're all trying to figure out the AI thing. And I was listening to two guys this weekend, and one was Tony Robbins. And Tyler, I know you listen to that too. And it was interesting what he was saying, and I'll summarize it here. But he's basically saying there's going to be a huge adjustment for the market, and a bunch of people are going to be displaced in terms of their jobs and things like that. And so how do we prepare for that and alleviate the suffering that that's going to bring to the world? Which is an interesting thought. And I think it's true, actually. I think it's already starting to happen. I was also listening to Elon, who was saying in 15 years, AI is going to be so productive that all of us are going to be living abundantly, and all of our needs will be met: shelter, food, everything. And none of us are going to have to work. And so it's fascinating to listen to compare what the two of them are saying. On one hand, Tony's saying this is going to adjust and we're all going to have to figure it out. So challenge is going to come from that. And so in that challenge, how are we going to learn? How are we going to grow? How are we going to adjust? Elon went on and he said something to the point of like, in that moment when we have nothing to do, that's going to be hard, because then people are going to be like, what's the point of life? Like, I don't have to go to work every day. Like, now what? Now what do I do? So what I'm trying to illustrate here is what like this AI thing is, it's change. And it's going to bring shifts, and it's going to bring challenge and struggle. And ultimately it's going to bring learning. And even getting to the point where you can wake up every day and think, what do I want to do? And I got plenty of food, and being too comfortable can be a massive challenge, right? So the point is we will not avoid it in our lives. We can't. And we have to choose into dealing with the reality of the pain that's coming from whatever it is, being too comfortable, being like totally hurt. We have to face it. We can't avoid it.
Yeah.
So I figured out the AI thing, Tyler.
Oh, well, man, thanks, bro.
Yeah. You know what to do with that. Now I'll tell you the stocks to invest in.
Yeah.
All right. I need that.
Yeah. So I want to come back to maybe just another more granular thing. I know we're getting a little bit close on time here. So we're talking about all this philosophical stuff. I know that people are still, but what do I do then? Like, how do I practice that? Like, where would be a good starting point for saying, okay, I know that I'm in hell right now over, my kid being an addict, or I just had D-Day happen, or I can't seem to climb out of my own hole with my addiction, or like whatever else. Like, I'm in ground zero. What would be steps 1, 2, and 3 right now, turning this podcast off, and where would I start?
Mm-hmm. I actually have my whole list here, things that I did. But I think the first is just, for me, it was like reaching a point of like surrender. Like I was talking to Brannon when he was on mine about, there's a balance where I have learned through the years, like, I'm not God. I can't control outcomes and how things work. And it's like, I've reached like a complete surrender over to God. But I also, again, we also have to recognize our options and our choices and our responsibilities. So it's kind of like embracing both things. But dailies are, you guys have a term for it.
Yeah. The daily charge,
right? I just call them my dailies, but like for me, it was stuff like I feel most connected to God out in nature. So like I'd get out every day. Like we actually during one of my life quakes or ground zeros, like Brannon helped kind of encourage me to be brave with my life, and I was living in a place that I didn't like at all for a while. I was staying for my kids and for my in-laws who wanted us to be nearby, all these different things. And we made a shift. We tried to move because at the time I had wanted to be back down south, but it didn't work out for various reasons. So we were like, okay, God wants us here. How do we create our best and truest life here? And so we moved to an area where now I'm living in a place I absolutely love. And it's got a lot of nature and lakes. So like I would take my daily walks and I would listen to you guys, or I would listen to another inspirational podcast, or I would listen to music that helps connect me with God and my strength. Music is very powerful. So like I created playlists for myself. I have a playlist when I want to just cry it out. I have a playlist when I need to remember like I'm a badass. I have a playlist to remind me of like God's got me. I also would like journal, not all the time. I don't think it needs to be a chore, or I like to Marco Polo with people because it helps. I hate the phone. I don't even talk to my own family on the phone. I'll like either talk live, FaceTime, or Marco with them. But Marcoing is like, for me, it's like a way to talk and connect when I have the time, and then they talk and connect when they do. But there's no interruption, so it almost feels like you're journaling out loud. And my friends even said, she's like, oh, I worked through my own issue talking about it on here because you're processing. Again, I used it to be very intentional with everything. The people I spent time with, really looking at who is safe, who also supports me in addition to me being there for them. Reading lots of motivational books. I remember I was following a thing called Goalcast. I don't know if you guys have heard of them, but they're very inspirational. I was feeding myself daily with like inspiration, things to remind me to keep going. Those are some.
It's good stuff. I think what you're talking about is just stepping intentionally into taking care of yourself and loving yourself through it. And I think as you do that, you start to recognize the reasons why you're going through it. But you have to choose to step into that.
Yeah.
So this has been awesome talking to you, Lisa. Lisa is truly, she lives what she talks about, and she's a resilient person who has been willing to step through a lot, so much. So, Lisa, where do they find your podcast?
It's called Rising Stronger. And you could find it like anywhere that you look up podcasts, like Apple, Spotify, whatever else is out there.
Awesome. That's a great name. And so go check Lisa out, and really appreciate you coming, Lisa. Thank you so much.
I appreciate having me on. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you to our listeners. We did get one comment I'll just read. This is kind of right along where you were ending with. When I decided to view surrender as my choice rather than being forced on me, I suddenly had a lot more joy, and my recovery had a clear purpose and direction. And I think some of the same things we were saying, but yeah, thank you. Thank you for the comments, and thank you to our listeners for being here with us. We hope this has been beneficial to you. If it is, please feel free to share with other people. We want to make a dent in the world any way we can, if it's for good. And we love having you here with us. And until next time, keep on keeping on.